this is Debbie, and this is Light Up Your Worth. I'm so excited that you're here. Today is part 2 of my time with Jacqueline Rose. To give you a refresher, Jacqueline is a leading voice in educating people around women's health, perimenopause, and menopause. She's a menopause educator and coach, women's hormonal health specialist, yoga for women's health teacher, and a therapeutic yoga teacher. And she is trained in functional blood work analysis and functional nutrition. Through her studies and teachings, she has developed a deeper understanding, awareness, and connection to her body, how it works, and how it naturally changes over time. So we're going to dig in and finish our episode that we had started talking about hormones and with perimenopause and talking through the whole cycle of this. So I'm so happy that you are here, and let's go ahead and dig in. What can women do to manage symptoms?
Yeah.
Through this?
So obviously there is the HRT piece of it, and we've had a long talk about that. And some women find that tremendously helpful. I do want to state that some women take a long time to get the dosage right. Some women start spotting or bleeding when they hadn't had a period for a long time. All of a sudden they go on HRT and they're spotting or bleeding again unexpectedly. Whilst HRT may be great for some women are very challenged by it. And for some women, even if they're on it, they may feel great for months, but then other things may start to occur. When we talk about evidence, Western medicine doctors prescribe what there is clear evidence for. There is evidence for using hormone replacement therapy for specific symptoms. It's not a catch-all, let's put on our HRT patch. HRT is one option. The second thing, and I think, as we've mentioned, this is much more profound, is really look at what is going on in your life. What is happening in your life that may be exacerbating or triggering your symptoms? Supplementation is really important. Essential things like omega-3s, magnesium, zinc, vitamin D, vitamin B complex. Our absorption in middle age and beyond is reduced. And these are essentials that we really need to make sure our body system is working really well. So that's some of the essentials. And then some of the other things, again, it's very woman specific. Every woman has her situation. It's one of the challenges in the United Kingdom where the conversation has become very generic and very stereotyped. A sort of white, heterosexual, middle-class woman seems to be the only way that a woman is experiencing menopause in the United Kingdom. I want to really acknowledge that there are as many women as there are in the world. That's as many of experiences of menopause as there will be. Not to talk about women in different ethnicities, demographics, and geographical locations, trans people who experience menopause differently, women in same-sex relationships who are experiencing it differently. I can only imagine what it must be like if you are in a same-sex relationship and you're both going through menopause at the same time. It's one thing if you've got a male partner, but if you've got a female partner who's also going through menopause, it's just double the experience. So I just want to acknowledge that all of that needs to be understood, recognized, honored. But some of the guiding principles are, we need to look at what's going on with our cortisol levels. We need to look at what's going on with our stress. We need to make sure that we are nourishing and supporting ourselves, not only with supplements, but with good levels of protein, good levels of high fat. Our brain is between, I can never remember the statistic, it's either 60 or 80% fat. So if on a low fat diet and we have cognitive symptoms, brain fog, short-term memory loss, lack of focus, not being able to juggle all the things we used to be able to do, and on a low-fat diet, not only is our brain going through changes, we're also not nourishing it with healthy fats to keep it sharp. Fiber is essential, cutting sugars and carbohydrates, anything that is potentially going to cause your body extra inflammation. So for some people that is alcohol, for some people that may be caffeine, for some people it may be dairy. And movement, really moving our body in the right way. That does not mean going to the gym for an hour every day. I don't believe that is right for every woman. For some women, that can even lead to stressing out the body even more. That sleep piece, we know there's so much research now coming out about how sleep is profound for brain health, everything going on in our body, restoring hormones, supporting our body through sleep and self-care. And when I say self-care, I'm not just going to talk about getting a manicure or a pedicure. That may be a great thing to do, but that's not really the self-care that I'm talking about. So much is changing for women at this stage. Children are growing up, empty nesting, aging parents you need to look after. You may be at a stage in your career where you now have responsibility and leadership that you worked for 20 years to get to that level. And now all of a sudden you've got brain fog and can't follow things in a meeting. There is so much we are dealing with at this stage of life, whether we are symptomatic or not, just because of the virtue of what it means to be, a woman in her late 40s, early 50s with family, responsibility, community, sending kids off to college, whatever it is. Our body is calling out to us to pay attention to ourselves. And it's something that begins to become a non-negotiable at this stage. In our 20s and our 30s, we can maybe get away with living life on the edge of really doing everything and giving very little back to ourselves. But come perimenopause and menopause, our body starts telling us that it is not going to do it anymore. Women begin to experience and are like, what? Why do I feel so out of whack? They may not have clear symptoms. They just don't feel balanced, grounded. They want to do things differently. They're making different life choices. What is going on? It's not something you can always go to your doctor for, because it's really hard to sometimes put your finger on what it really is that's changing. Sometimes it's also really difficult to communicate with your partner because you don't even know yourself. Like, something has changed, but it's hard to talk to your partner about it. And they then obviously are wondering what's going on with you. So there's a lot of things going on here. And the work I do with clients is about symptoms, but it's much more than just symptom management. It's deeper, which I know you love to talk about on this podcast, that real deeper spiritual piece.
Yeah, I've gotten into the habit of asking my body what it needs today. I've changed my eating multiple times. Right now, I'm doing a functional medicine elimination diet. I don't really do a lot of dairy anyway. I've been dairy intolerant my whole life. No dairy, no gluten, no red meat. So I eat fish. So I have salmon once a week. I have flounder. I have some other white meat and no pork. So I eat some chicken and I eat fish, but I have to have an enormous amount of protein and fiber. I eat more green vegetables than I ever used to do since my 40s. I've had to learn how to create different routines for myself. Like currently, I start my day out with celery juice. I chop it up, blend it every day, and then I wait 15, 20 minutes, and then I'll do my smoothie, which is pea protein, spinach, and I don't really care for spinach, with fresh organic blueberries. And I just started to add in a little bit of turmeric for inflammation, and I can't taste it, right? And so that's my new thing. I'm now growing celery because I go through so much. I'm sprouting it. Learning how to balance all of this is very time consuming.
There's many women struggling so much. They just want to stick a patch on and be done with it. I'm not disparaging any woman who goes down that route. If that is working for you, great. But for many women, it's not enough. What does your body need? That takes time, connection, patience, and listening. Many women don't have the ability, or have never done that before. It's profound when you're able to do it.
I just had new blood work done, and my total cholesterol is the lowest it's been in 15 years. Now my mixtures, my ratios need to come down a little more, but they're going in the right direction because of the cognitive issues that I've
Yeah.
been experiencing that
Yeah.
I just kept being told it was brain fog. And it's a little,
Yeah.
it's more than brain fog.
It's more
And
than that.
so one of the questions I was really curious about just slipped my mind.
That's okay. Can I say something else while you're thinking?
Yes, yes.
I want to say something about protein. If it comes back, interrupt me so you don't lose it again. You mentioned the amount of protein we need to be eating.
Mm-hmm.
So many women, we're not eating enough protein and will supplement that protein with protein bars. I want every woman who's taking a protein bar because she knows she needs to have more protein to look at the nutritional content and see how much sugar is in that protein bar. And you will be shocked. And I've done it. I've done the experiments myself. That protein bar may have 10 grams, 15 grams of protein. Look how much sugar is in that protein bar. The protein you're eating is pure protein. I just want women to start thinking about the decisions and choices they're making. You've been told you need more protein. Great, let me go have that protein bar. That's an easy way of getting it. But it may come at the expense of boosting your sugar levels. And then what have you actually gained? So we're told a lot of these things. We need to make sure we're implementing these things in the right way that's actually thoughtful and appropriate. So I just wanted to mention that because you mentioned about how much protein you're eating. And I think most of us are not eating enough.
Yes, I think I was told at the beginning of menopause to eat between 80 and 100 grams of protein a day.
Wow.
And that's a lot. So the other little thing I was recently shared with, and I want to hear your opinion on, is if I eat a piece of fruit, like an apple for cholesterol, I should always take a fruit and mix it with a little bit of protein. So I could take a handful of, say, almonds and eat it so that I don't get the rush of the sugar, the natural sugar, because that's also what I've given up is sugar
Yeah.
or trying to reduce it, but it's in everything. And
Yeah.
taking the fruit with a little bit of a couple almonds.
This is a great question. I am so happy that you asked it. This allows me to talk about sugar. Sugar really is the devil's food. Unfortunately, in midlife, our body interprets sugar as sugar. It doesn't matter whether you're having sugar, agave honey, an apple, or a Mars bar. The insulin response is going to be dramatic. Our insulin will spike. That brings on, exacerbates hormonal imbalance. It brings on a lot of cascading things that go on in our body. And one of the things that happen is we then have that sugar drop, we get exhausted, we have more brain fog, bloated, we just don't feel good. And estrogen and insulin have a very intimate relationship. So when estrogen is fluctuating and dropping, our insulin sensitivity becomes less effective. We become more insulin insensitive. So that means insulin can't work as well as it used to work. So maybe we could manage beforehand having more sugar in our diet, but as we age, insulin just doesn't work as well because we're losing this estrogen protectiveness of it. So when we come to this healthy apple, the healthy apple absolutely is going to give us nutrients and fiber, but it is also going to boost our glucose level. And the nutrients and the fiber we can get from other healthy sources, like all the vegetables, like chia seeds, flax seeds, nuts, cashew nuts, almonds, peanuts. We can get the nutrients, vegetables obviously is the main source, but we can get the nutrients and the fiber from other sources. We don't have to have it from the apple, because the insulin response from eating that apple, especially if you're eating it, how many women just grab that apple as a healthy snack in the middle of the day without any relationship to any other food they're eating? You may as well, again, I'm talking about it from the insulin glucose perspective, you may as well go and enjoy yourself and take a muffin, a Mars bar, or take a tub of ice cream, because the insulin, the sugar response in the body from the apple, go and enjoy yourself and take the Mars bar. Therefore, when we talk about having this healthy snack, if you do want the apple because you love apples, there are a couple of things you should be doing when you eat the apple. Either eat it at the end of a meal, preferably a high protein, high fat, high vegetable, high fiber meal, then have your apple, or pair it with some good protein. So I know, dip your apple in some peanut butter, some sugar-free natural peanut butter, or have the apple with, as you said, some almonds, Brazil nuts or walnuts or something like that. Having that apple by itself is going to trigger an insulin response, which is just going to make you feel really bad, and it's not really worth it. There are a lot of fruit that fall into that category as we assume they're healthy, but they really trigger an insulin response, which absolutely is going to be exacerbating many of your symptoms. Great fruit to eat, as you said, is berries, all the different berries. Watermelon is also not bad. I think it's cantaloupe melon is also not bad. But really, you want to stay away from high sugar, high fructose fruit, because even though you may be getting some nutrients and some fiber, it's not worth it for the insulin glucose response.
Oh, so does that lead to this term you're hearing a lot, which is insulin resistance?
Yes.
And does that impact our midline
Yes.
with, I call it the menopause baby that I'm ready to give birth to? Is there any correlation between those two? Oh.
Yeah. In functional medicine, what we are seeing is there are two main triggers for chronic disease. Chronic disease being diabetes, thyroid issues, fibromyalgia, skin diseases like eczema. There is no medication that really treats it. Today's understanding is that inflammation, very much triggered by, but not only triggered by, insulin resistance, where insulin stops responding the way it should. Insulin is the blood sugar regulating hormone. When you eat high sugary food or when you eat food, insulin rises so that it pulls the sugar out of the blood into the cells, and then the blood sugar levels balance out and insulin falls. Obviously, we have diabetes where pediatric diabetes, or not the type 2 diabetes, which is diet triggered, but any of the more genetic diabetes where that function of the insulin doesn't work properly. But leaving that aside, in the normal average person, that's what insulin should do. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if you haven't eaten for a long time, you feel weak, you feel faint, you feel dizzy, that's because our blood sugar levels have dropped too much, and insulin needs to trigger the cells to release sugar so that it can go back into our blood. Insulin resistance is when insulin becomes inefficient, deficient, dysfunctional, and the insulin receptors in the cells just are not really working anymore. And so we either have too high blood glucose levels, too low blood glucose levels, weight gain, a lot of other health implications, gut inflammation, just our body is totally out of whack. Weight gain, feeling exhausted, brain fog, not feeling focused, a lot of joint pain, a lot of things that can potentially go happen, and it's absolutely connected to inflammation. So that is one piece of the puzzle. This belly, menopause, pregnancy is related to insulin resistance, insulin not working properly, the fact that maybe for years we had a poor diet. Now, as we've said, we've lost that estrogen protective nature, and so our insulin is not working as well. We're gaining weight, our whole blood sugar is totally out of whack. But there's actually another piece of the puzzle, is the role of estrogen and fat cells. We know, we said at the very beginning, our ovaries stop their production of estrogen. That is the biological definition of what happens in menopause. Our ovaries are shutting down. They're not productive anymore, and they don't produce this. In postmenopause, we need low levels of estrogen. We need estrogen. We should not be at zero, and that's why menopause symptoms may persist postmenopause, if your estrogen levels have dropped too low. We need a range of estrogen. Where do we get it from if not our ovaries? Our adrenal glands and fat cells. Now, this now relates back to the stress piece. Our adrenal glands are those glands that are producing cortisol. If your adrenal glands have been producing cortisol, the stress hormone, for 30 years because we've been living high stress lives, comes post-menopause, they're meant to now be producing estrogen, and the adrenal glands turn around and say, sorry, I'm exhausted. I've been pumping out cortisol. I don't have the reserves to produce estrogen anymore. So where does estrogen production come from? Fat cells. That is the second source of estrogen production. That means fat cells, and predominantly fat cells around the mid part of our body, is nature's way of actually protecting us. It is biologically the way that our body maintains estrogen levels. And very often, this excess weight gain may have nothing to do with what you're eating, which is why this whole idea of eat less, exercise more, lose the weight doesn't apply for many women in midlife, because it's nothing to do with calories that you are eating. It's about your estrogen levels and your body trying to hold on to estrogen production because the ovaries have stopped producing estrogen. The fat cells now take up the job.
Oh my gosh. I just had this moment when you were talking about the adrenals and fat cells, how it adds the fat cells to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
In the metaphysical worlds, when they link certain symptoms with certain things that are in our subconscious. And
Right.
would you know that they say weight issues when it's around your midsize also is to protect you? It's a protection for women.
Wow.
So you're not
Wow.
looked at, right? Like it keeps you safe. So a lot of women who have had a lot of sexual trauma will have a
Yes.
tendency to gain weight afterwards as a protection method. Aligning the metaphysical world with what you just said, it's just poof. How many women need to hear that? How many of us have had adrenal fatigue, which doesn't
Yes.
have a medical CPT code? So a
Yep.
traditional doctor doesn't even acknowledge that most
Yep.
women, it's some really super high number eh, that
Yes.
have had adrenal fatigue, including myself. I had that diagnosis in my early 40s from powering through as a single mom, school, career, sports for the sizing, and so my adrenals were just done.
Yeah.
And that is really the beginning of the struggle with the stuff with the fat cells, the protection.
Yeah.
As I've worked with subconscious beliefs, I believe we carried our ancestors in our bodies. There's lots of papers
Yeah.
about how our body remembers, and
Yeah.
we take that on with all of the stuff that women have been through. Um, that whole protecting us, I just mind blown that
Yeah.
you just connected a huge dot with the metaphysical stuff with what I believe, as well
Yeah.
as it's medically, even from your perspective, without realizing it.
So I'm
What,
pleased that you
yeah.
had that
And
aha moment.
yeah, and one of the things which really leads me to my next question is at this stage, this post-menopause, or right when you're getting ready to transition over from the peri into menopause and then post, is that I wrote down not take it anymore.
Yeah.
Is that the hormones somehow spear on where people think we just are irritable or we just so much more demanding. I don't
Yeah.
believe we're demanding. We might have more meltdowns, but I think our bodies no longer accept us to be treated poorly and not put our bodies number one with what we need, not as a want, but as a need that is just no longer acceptable. Our body builds it in where we're going to speak our minds.
One of the deeper, more profound definitions I have for this menopause journey. Everything we've talked about holds true, but menopause is the journey every woman needs to navigate to become her true, authentic self.
Mm.
In our reproductive years, whether you have had a child or not, we are created to another. We give birth to another. in these perimenopause, menopause, and into postmenopause, we are nurturing, creating, and rebirthing ourselves.
Mm.
And so that desire, as you've said, to stand up for what you want, for what you need, and not being willing to take it anymore, is part of that very deeply profound journey of becoming your true, authentic self.
Mm. Yes, so agree. It's the most beautiful time of our lives.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
And
where I
that's
was so
why,
concerned about other things
yes,
before myself, which led to these other, like the adrenal fatigue, the lack of sleep, the
yeah,
lack to put everybody's needs first, and then occasionally doing my own, of course, but it wasn't a consistent practice.
yeah. And that's also why, especially in the work I do with my clients, and one of the challenges I have about around this menopause conversation, we talked about at the beginning of the conversation, our myths and stereotypes. When we only frame perimenopause and menopause in the context of symptoms, you don't get to any of this conversation because it's only about symptom management. And this deeper, broader, life-changing experience is totally ignored. It's not even part of the conversation. All we're focused on is this conversation of symptoms and struggle and are you taking HRT? Are you not taking HRT? That becomes the focus of this conversation. And that's something that I think is really, really missing in this broader menopause conversation.
I do too. I think it's why it's my favorite group to work with individually as well and
Yeah,
coach and help, because they're starting to go through their own self-discovery to that authentic self
yeah,
and trying to work through belief systems. And that's a big belief that we're being selfish
yes,
with this age. And you're that conversation that we're not being selfish. We have to put that oxygen on ourselves to not just survive, but thrive, because it's a requirement. Our body needs us to pay attention.
yeah. And I think if we go back to understanding menopause in this life stage cycle of women, we have those reproductive years where we are nurturing and giving and so outward looking that anything that has to do with yourself is perceived as being so selfish, because in those years, it is all looking out. But then comes the next life stage, menopause and postmenopause, where the definition is it now becomes inward looking. So it's different things for different life stages. We just need to start reframing this conversation to understand that women do different things, behave in different ways, have different hormonal constructions, function in different ways at different stages of their life cycle. Men, it's very different for, but we need to start understanding this in that context to remove all that selfish and so that selfish language, feeling guilt and shame and embarrassment when you want to do anything for yourself.
Yeah, and we don't need to feel those. Those are the lowest level vibrational energies that bring on disease. It's important that people work with somebody, whether it's therapy or coach, psychiatrist,
Yeah,
whatever it is, to
yeah,
get through to those belief systems so you can release them from your body and be part of this thriving in our life. Now, what is one thing you wish every woman would know about menopause?
the most important thing is that struggle, suffering, frustration is not a prerequisite for this stage of life.
Mm.
And I think that applies for women's health in general. But I think that suffering, struggling, symptoms, frustration, all of that negativity is not an essential piece of the puzzle. It's not a prerequisite for navigating menopause. It can look different. About 20, 25% of women have severe symptoms. We know about 20% of women have no symptoms. And we know there's the bit in the middle where, some symptoms, depending, changing, and whatever. That's not 100% of women. That is, it can look a certain way. It doesn't have to look the way you imagine with stereotypes. Suffering, struggling, frustration, pain is not a prerequisite for perimenopause and menopause.
Yes. 200% agree. This has been enlightening. Now, I want to turn this to more towards Jacqueline now, and I have my two questions that I like to ask all my guests. One of them is, as you're navigating your life, you put on a song to change the mood. I consider music self-care and,
yes.
To move your body. What's your go-to song to uplift you, and whether it's your mood or your body? What is that for you?
So I'm actually a mum of 5 kids, and I have teens and kids in their early 20s. Music is a big part of our lives. My husband's very into music. We have our Alexa on the whole time. It's a difficult question to answer because music is so much a feature of our family life. I think for me, though, 80s pop is always going to make me feel happy. And you could put on anything from Wham to Bananarama to Guns N' Roses to Def Leppard, and any of that 80s pop, soft rock is going to just make me get up and dance and embarrass my children. I think a good one to get started is the classic Wham! Wake Me Up Before You Go. Anything from that genre is going to be a great way to really get the blood pumping, the big smile on your face. I agree with you. I think it's amazing self-care. It also gets you moving. It's a good added bonus. I can't say I've got one clear song, but that's the general answer.
Oh, I love that. I'm an 80s girl. I love 80s pop and soft rock. So my question now is, looking back, what would you tell your younger self about how worthy you are?
Yes, this is a really profound question because, as I mentioned, I am blessed with 5 kids, and I have in that mix 3 girls who have navigated and are navigating teenagerhood. And I look at them and I think all the things they're struggling with, all the things I struggled with as a teenager, where I am today. And I think probably the most important thing I wish I had known, which you can only know with life experience, is the things that you think are so important to you when you're younger are irrelevant when you're older. Yes, they're part of our life journey, and they do turn us into very often who we become. But I wish we didn't get so caught up on those things that become irrelevant later on. But it's hard because at that life stage, that is the essence, the social angst and me and my best friend have a crush on the same boy, and all these things that you navigate as a teenager really are irrelevant to the bigger picture, but are the essence of what it means to be a younger self. And then I also think about myself as a young mother, navigating all those things. The most important thing at any age and at any stage, and maybe this is the thing that I really, really wish I knew when I was younger, is to listen to your body. We really are not taught the skill to listen to the messages that our body is sending us. Again, not to get too personal, but I have one daughter with PCOS, polycystic ovaries. I have one daughter with irritable bowel syndrome and IBS. I have another daughter with other health issues. And I think that one of the things that I have imparted to them because of the fields of work that I'm in is listen to your body. You know your body better than anyone else. You go to the doctor 10 minutes. You are with your body 24/7. You know your body way better than the doctor is going to when he sees you or she sees you for 10 minutes. Listen to your body. Trust your body. Be confident in the messages that your body is sending you. Don't let that doctor who is hearing you talk about your body for 10 minutes. Don't let them tell you that it's irrelevant, that it doesn't count, that it's nothing serious. You are with your body 24/7. And I think that is one of the most important things I want people to know. I wanted myself to know when I was younger. I want my daughters to know. All that stuff that you think is so important isn't important later on in life. Yes, it feels so important at the time, but really giving yourself that time, that space, that silence to listen to what your body.
Mm. I wish I could go back and, and do that myself.
Yes.
Listen to it. So I just have absolutely loved our conversation, Jacqueline, as I'm sure the listeners have. And how are they able to reach you?
Thank you. Yes, I've loved this. Really, every minute you really let me ramble about my passion topic. So I appreciate that. People can find me at Jacqueline Rose Health. My website is JacquelineRoseHealth.com. On all platforms, Jacqueline Rose Women's Health. Jacqueline is spelled French way. I also have a private Facebook group, the Menopause Sisterhood. Also my summit, the Menopause Summit. Google Jacqueline Rose Women's Health and I will pop up.
On your Menopause Summit, what month do you have that every year?
It comes out in May, but if you go to my website, you can purchase previous years of the summit. It happens in May. It's 6 days. This year, I had 25 experts from around the world talking about everything from hormones to lifestyle to exercise to diet to postmenopause. On my website, under the Instant Access tab, you can find this year's summit and previous summits and purchase them.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear.
In 2025, there'll be another live summit event. So yeah,
something to look forward to. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Debbie, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.